Welcome into another edition of Talkin Ducks, and a lot to clean up from that Georgia game. We'll give you our thoughts as far as what Oregon needs to address, our thoughts on Bo Nix and whether or not it truly is his job to lose the rest of the way. And then we'll take a look forward. Eastern Washington, this matchup, as far as what Oregon needs to do to have confidence going into their final non-conference game of the year. But let's go ahead and get to our opening drive, brought to you by Les Schwab Tire Centers. Les Schwab doing the right thing since 1952. And with that, we welcome in the crew, Joey Harrington, Anthony Newman, and from the Oregonian, Aaron Fentress. And Joey, I think you said last week you wanted Oregon to be competitive, and we didn't think the Ducks were really going to win, but 49-3 in an effort that really didn't have Oregon looking like they could even hold their own against Georgia most of the time. You look at this game, and what was your biggest takeaway as far as how disappointing this loss was?
Wow, I don't think I've heard that many negative things come out of your mouth at one time. I don't know.
I got a lot of the way for the season. I get it. It's the first game. Dan, if you're watching this, totally get it. A hard matchup for you guys down in Georgia. Still a lot to play for in this season. But at the same time, I think he would tell you 49-3 is not what they are.
I know. I'm kidding. Okay, so I think it's fair to say that nobody was happy, with the performance. But I also think that if you take a step back and look at how the game transpired, right? Oregon moved the ball well on their first drive, didn't get anything out of it. Moved the ball on their second drive, both threw a pick. That one was not his fault. Throws the ball up, DB made a hell of a play. I mean, that was as good a play as I've seen from a DB in a long time, maybe since, Anthony Newman put on that neck roll. The next pick was Bo's fault. I mean, he stared it down. It looked like he had predetermined where he was going to go with the ball. And what happened, really in the span of those three drives is Oregon didn't score. They missed a tackle, allowed Georgia to continue their drive, and they scored. Oregon turned the ball over. They missed a tackle, which allowed Georgia to continue the drive, and they scored. Turn the ball over again on a bad decision, Georgia scores again. I mean, it was just a series of one or two mistakes early that snowballed into something that became really, really pretty ugly by the end. So by no means is anybody sitting around here saying, boy, that was something good to build on. Well, I mean, it wasn't. But if you dissect the things that led to it, they're fixable, right? It's not a situation where you need to rip up the playbook and throw everything, fire the coach. I mean, I seriously heard people say, fire the coaching staff. Why do we even? I mean, for God's sake, take a deep breath. Realize what was actually happening. A young Oregon team with a new coaching staff was playing the defending national champions, and they got kicked in the teeth. It happened.
Anthony.
Joey said it all. That was it. I mean, it was, it's one of those games that you kind of look at that game and go, let's flush it, let's move on. And it's always about moving on. It's about moving on to the next play. It's about moving on to the next quarter. To the second half, and now to next week. I mean, really, you learn from your mistakes. Coach Lanning said his coaching staff is taking all the blame. I get that, but players have to play. Players have to execute. On defense, I saw poor tackling. I saw bad angles to the ball carrier, giving up a lot of deep balls or passes over 20 yards. And players have to find a way to make those plays and be competitive. And when you have a bad game against a very good football team with a lot of dudes, it's not going to be good. It really, it gets ugly.
All right, Aaron. I don't know if you've been chomping at the bit for this, but you've got a good eye for all this. What's your takeaway? I mean, it's the first game of the year, new coaching staff against his former team all the way across the country. It's essentially a road game. They get dominated. What do you take away from it?
Who says he has a good eye? Nobody. What are you talking about?
My mama said so. That's all that matters. Okay, anyway. Look, if you were thinking that the Ducks were going to contend for the national title this year, this was devastating. But if you were thinking that, you were kind of being delusional. There's still enough talent on this team to where they can probably contend for the Pac-12 title, so not all is lost. However, what I'm going to hammer on is just one overriding point that I think is very important, and that is that the Oregon Ducks turn themselves into a program. We are national championship or bust. That's why the staff that you guys played for, some of those players, were fired after that one bad season. They thought they could find someone better, recruit better, and contend for the national title. So we are 6 recruiting cycles since that firing with Taggart, Mario, and Lanning. Although Lanning's kids are freshmen, so give them a break. But Mario had 2 top 10 classes and a bunch of other really good classes that every time a guy put on a hat, revealed his shirt, or did something silly for his announcement, Duck fans went crazy. Oh my God, we're going to be so amazing. We're going to be so amazing. Yet 6 years into this thing, you just got destroyed by a true national contender. You are shown the gap between where Oregon is and where you need to be to win a national title. Furthermore, after 6 recruiting cycles, you don't have a quarterback. You got your second transfer. You don't have a marquee star tailback. We're going to talk later about what happened to Cardwell. You and I, Anthony, and we've all talked about him. He's supposed to be the guy. He wasn't even starting. You got a transfer starting. You don't have a marquee receiver. Your best quarterback in the last 6 years is Herbert, recruited under Helfrich. Your best running back of the last 6 years is Verdale, recruited by Gary Campbell. Your best receiver of the last 6 years is Johnny Johnson, recruited under Helfrich. So in 6 years, you couldn't come up with a quarterback, a marquee receiver, a marquee running back, and a defense good enough to not go out there and get blasted 49-3 by Georgia? After all of that? That is an indictment, and that is scary moving forward because I see nothing on this roster that tells me that this program is even remotely close to being a national contender like they were 8 years ago. And it's been 8 whole years since they last were. So for me, that is the scariest part. Not that they lost, but how they lost and the gap that was displayed between Oregon and what it takes to win it all.
And I think it's a really good point, Aaron. It's something that we'll get to because we're going to step aside here real quick and get to this quarterback conversation. But later on, we'll also break down what Oregon needs to do to get to from where they are right now back on the national championship scene. We are just getting started on Talkin Ducks. Plenty more when we come back. Welcome back to Talkin Ducks. Before we left, Aaron Fentress posing the point that after 6 recruiting cycles here, Anthony, Oregon is yet to find a marquee quarterback, running back, or receiver despite all the top 10 classes underneath Taggart, Cristobal, and of course, Lanning. You got to give him a chance to be the coach here for a couple of seasons. But what do you make about this from where Oregon has been the last 6 years when you go back to the last time they played for a national championship, which was the 2014-15 season?
No, I'm going to respond to Aaron's comments. You know, you have a good eye. You really do. That was some good content. Good job. That was a good job. I agree with you.
Joe doesn't know what to make of it. But see, Joey, you should agree with me because you got But Joey, you and I are lockstep on the recruiting hype stuff. This is what we're talking about. This is what you and I always talk about. All the stars are nice. All the hat stuff is nice, but what does it mean when you get on the field? And we saw when it got on the field, they looked completely overwhelmed.
Are you talking to me? I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's talking to you.
I mean, I was too busy just like.
Face, so.
Of course, you know, I agree with you. I'm just so absolutely befuddled by the way Jordan started the show and Anthony agreeing with Aaron that I just can't even I cannot even agreeing, but he complimented you on your.
Makes sense right now.
Yeah,
one time
makes sense right now.
I'm tearing up.
Again, Fentress, you're right. I mean, this is exactly what we talk about and why I hate recruiting rankings and all the hype that's made about it. There's something to be said for simply getting. Yes, I understand you have to have talent on your team. I understand you have to have 4-star and 5. You got to have dudes. But you also have to have guys that play together. And you have to have an identity. And you have to know who you are. And you have to know why you are that way. And then you have to recruit players that fit and buy into that. I don't think anybody quite knows where this roster is. Is there talent? Sure. But what are they expecting to do with it? I think that's the question. I don't know. Let's move to something else.
I'm going. Well, let's get to the quarterback conversation.
Let's do that.
Because obviously, Bo Nix gets the start. They didn't name a starter before the game started. But you have Nix. You saw his performance, has the 2 picks. Ty Thompson doesn't see the field at all in this game. And so, Joey, I guess my question to you is, what did you see from Nix? You're not going to pull him after one game, of course. But is there enough of a takeaway from this game to where you feel confident, hey, he's the starter no matter what the rest of the season? Or do you feel like there should still be a competition the rest of the way?
I don't know.
I got it.
I mean,
go ahead, Aaron.
No. I'll answer this. I'll answer this. But I mean, the reality is none of us know. We had this conversation all last year about Ty Thompson versus Anthony Brown. I mean, I will go back to what my friends from Auburn have said about Bo. They said you either get good Bo or you get bad Bo. And it's polarizing. He's either really high or really low. And I think what the coaches had hoped for is that he would eliminate those lows in his final year. That didn't happen. So I don't know, Aaron. You take it from here.
I'm going to give Bo the benefit of the doubt because this Georgia defense is legit, regardless of how many people they lost to the NFL. It's a really good elite defense. He's seen it before. He struggled against them before. Most everyone struggles against them. So it's difficult for me to say, oh, Bo isn't the guy because he struggled against Georgia. Like, that's not fair. Also, the interceptions were really bizarre to me because he entered this game with only 16 career interceptions while playing in the SEC, by the way, on over 1,000 attempts. So for him to throw 2 like that, very uncharacteristic. I could totally see him going the rest of the season and not getting more than 7 or 8 or 9 on the season. Like that could be his ceiling there. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. But the bottom line with the whole Ty Thompson thing, and Anthony brought this up last week, he's got that 5-star tag by him. And because of that, everyone assumes he must be the next great quarterback. And so everyone's like, he's got to be the guy. Why are these coaches so dumb? Well, you're calling 2 head coaches dumb now because Mario wouldn't play him. And then Lanning, wasn't it like within 5 seconds of getting the job, he had Bo Nix on his way because he had heard about where Thompson was as well. And they weren't going to put all their eggs in that basket. So now he's seen Thompson for 9 months, and he's decided that Thompson's not the guy. As for the competition, there was no competition. They were just playing games for that whole we're not going to name the starter thing. And like I said last week, Georgia didn't care. Please throw Ty Thompson out there. They would have loved to have seen him out there. But Bo's their guy because Bo's a vet, and Bo can operate the offense, and Ty is still a project. So I almost want them to play Ty so he can go out there and demonstrate why he's not ready, and then everyone will shut the heck up about it. But they're not until they have to, and right now they don't have to. Bo's the guy who's moving forward. But I will say this. I do believe that if this continued for several more games, we could see him a lot quicker than we were going to see him last year because what's no longer in play is the whole redshirt situation. So be on the lookout for that, but give Bo a chance to moving forward because everyone's going to struggle against Georgia.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest takeaway. People are failing to forget this is a Georgia defense that had 5 first-rounders last year. They're going to probably have 3 or 4 first-rounders off this defense. Probably too quick to measure Bo Nix and what he's going to be this season against one of the best college defenses, if not the best in the nation.
Well, I was saying that last week. I mean, you're playing a football team that has a lot of experience, and then the experience with the coaching staff is really important. Oregon's coaching staff is brand new. I don't care how much talent you have. It's still hard to gel as a team in the first year. And then your first game is with one of the best teams in the country that I keep saying this over and over and over. You have a lot of dudes. Kirby Smart of Georgia said this. He said, okay, it's easy to coach when you have a lot of dudes. And so they had more dudes than Oregon. And when Oregon doesn't play well and you're playing against a bunch of dudes, they're going to make you look bad. And so with Bo Nix, give him time. Let him play. I didn't think he really had a bad game when you talk about against a very good defense. He played well. A couple picks, that happens. But I like the way you don't want to see this, but he led the team in rushing. But what it tells you is that, hey, he can get out of sticky situations with his feet and yet throw the ball well. Go with Bo Nix and keep riding that until you feel comfortable with this offense.
All right, stick around when we come back. We'll talk more about this defense. The Ducks couldn't even force the Bulldogs to punt for 7 series. Still probably too early to tell. We'll give you our thoughts when we come back on Talkin Ducks. Welcome back. Time to take charge. Brought to you by Arcimoto Electric Fun. Well, you would hope the Oregon defense would have taken charge against Georgia. However, it was the Georgia offense that took charge against the Ducks, putting up 49 points and not needing to punt in the entire first half. And Aaron, this Oregon defense, it really felt like the entire game struggled to tackle and was just giving a nice little cushion to a lot of these Georgia receivers.
Yeah, and it was alarming because last season ranked 79th. You lost Kayvon. A lot of people thought they might be better this year. They definitely have some talent. You got 3 5-star recruits on the defense in Flo, Sewell, and Manning, but you offered no resistance. I mean, they could not stop Georgia at all. And so again, it's Georgia, fine, flush it, move forward. But if the defense is still in that 70th, 80th ranking range going into the Pac-12 season, there's some losses coming. Right? That's, to me, it's just a given because we haven't seen an offense yet that's going to overcome that. So for me coming into the season, I felt like the offense would be probably solid, not great. The defense had to turn a corner from last season. So far, no evidence of that, but it was week 1 and it was Georgia.
Yeah, it's a good point, Anthony.
Yeah, well, it was Georgia. Aaron's right. I'm looking at the fundamentals. Tackling. I think that was poor. Angles to the football. I think that was poor. The defensive line did not show up at all. I mean, there was no pressure on the quarterbacks. There was no pressure, no stopping the run. And there was a lot of long passes. And Aaron was also right again. God, why do I keep saying that? Aaron's also right again. Well, he was. There was the DBs were playing soft. And I don't want to say soft. They were backed off a little bit. When you get in 3rd and 12, because if you think about it, first down and second down for the defense wasn't bad. Georgia had a lot of 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 7s, 3rd and 12. And the DBs were really backed off a little bit. They didn't challenge the receiver. It looks like they wanted to keep everything in front of them and not allow big plays or explosion plays. But then yet they were getting first downs. And so that's the problem. But you have to go back to fundamentals. Again, you have to flush the game. Look at your tackling concepts. Look at your angles to the ball. And let's get back to basics as a defensive player. And the sad thing about this also, the star football player on defense did not show up. Noah Sewell only had 3 tackles. He wasn't even in the factor. They didn't even talk about him. And I'm not sure if that was the scheme, because Dan Lanning talked about he was taking blame for what happened. Maybe they had Noah lined up in the wrong spots. I'm not sure, but he wasn't really a factor in this game.
I got a question, guys, and it's as I'm kind of listening to you and Anthony, maybe you can help me. How much of this is technique, scheme, and how much of it is just effort, right? How much of it, because I think of those, and I'm going an Oregon example, the gangrene defense, right? But I think of all of those, dominant defenses through the years, and it seems like the effort that comes from it, the confidence that like we talked about last week. If we saw 4 and 5 guys rallying to the ball at the end of the tackle, how many guys are there at the end of the ball? Or at the end, right? If it's 1 or 2 guys who happen to make the tackle, or do you have 3, 4, 5 guys, hustling in at the end? I'm curious how much of it is actual scheme and technique, and how much of it is just a desire to do it, because that's what a lot of defense is I desire to get to the ball carrier more than you desire to block me.
What did Mike Tyson say? Everyone has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. And I felt like when they got out there and got hit a few times and realized what they were dealing with, that there was a little bit, and again, I'm not attacking these kids at all. I'm just talking football here. We all know how football can work. If Anthony Newman drops me over the middle on a post route, the next time I run that post route, I'm going to be a little looking around for Anthony Newman. Okay, yeah. That's just how it is. So I felt like that once they realized that the physicality was just different, that there was some of that backing up a little bit. We saw some guys get blocked off the screen. We saw some things where it was like they just knew that physically they couldn't handle it. So is that necessarily hard, or is that them just realizing we're out of this and then not giving that same effort that you would want? So again, it all comes back to the fact that Georgia was just so superior physically that it just erased whatever it is Oregon wanted to do, and erased some
before
heart.
Before you jump in, I feel like I'm gonna jump on what Aaron said. I feel like that turning point happened when their tight end, that 6'7", 270-pound dude,
number 0.
Yeah, chucked off the would-be tackler and then hurdled that was the moment. I feel like I think it was in the second quarter where it was like, we might not be in for the same type of ball game.
You're like, Coach, what do we do about that? You didn't have that.
Different
we
weight
didn't do that in
class.
practice.
Different weight class completely. And the last thing I'll say before we get rolling here is everyone talked about, hey, Lanning's going to know what Georgia's going to do. Well,
doesn't matter.
Georgia's going to know what Lanning's going to do
Exactly.
defensively also. So you figure they kind of had an idea as far as how to play against that Lanning scheme. But obviously it's week 1, and we'll get a better idea of this against Eastern Washington and then BYU, of course. But when we come back on Talkin Ducks, we'll break down the offense a little bit more and see what the Ducks seem to show as our first glimpse at new offensive coordinator Kenny Dillingham. We'll let you know what we thought about the flow when we come back on Talkin Ducks. Welcome back to Talkin Ducks. Obviously some issues for the defense against this Georgia offense, but Joey, this Oregon offense, it felt like the first couple series of the game, they were moving the ball. They just kept shooting themselves in the foot, whether it was drop passes on third down or missed assignments when it came to a couple of throws. But overall, Kenny Dillingham, his first chance to be the offensive coordinator here for Oregon. What did you see with this Oregon offense, and where do you think they can try to really improve as they get set for Eastern Washington?
Yeah, like you said, I'm actually kind of encouraged, especially compared to what we saw last year. The first quarter and a half, they moved the ball better. I'm not worried about the wide receiver group right now. They spread the ball around. You're going to see somebody emerge. I think my question, and more of a curiosity, is we'd expected Byron Cardwell to be the guy. And not only was he not the guy, he didn't even start the game, right? And I understand the idea of, many bodies make light work, right? And you don't want to wear a guy down. You want him fresh for the end of the season. But I expected to see a significantly larger role for Byron Cardwell than I think maybe was in play, or maybe the game just went in a different direction. I'm not really sure. I have questions about how the running backs are going to be used. I think the more you sustain drives and the more you play better offense, the wide receiver group is going to get utilized a little bit more.
It's just real quick on running back. It's my understanding that he just flat out didn't win the job, Cardwell. And I know It's shocking to all of us because of what we saw last year, and we thought, okay, this is the guy for the future. But that's why they have the offseason. That's why they have practices. You got to trust the coaching staff that they made a determination that they feel is best for the team. But yeah, as of right now, he's not the guy, and they don't really have the guy, which I think probably won't be a huge deal in the Pac-12 because I think you can get by rotating backs. That's fine if you don't feel like you have a number one. But it is a little shocking because no one saw this coming really, and this is what happens when you don't open practice, is people can't really go and see what's sort of going on. But yeah, that's my understanding is he just simply got beaten out.
And here's what I'm curious about.
Yeah.
There's a difference between fall camp speed and game speed, no matter who you play. Do you think it was just such a shock to this Oregon team to go from fall camp to playing the defending national champions? And you won't face anybody as big, strong, or fast the entire season collectively as a team. So as far as a shock to the system, do you feel like there was some of that going on for Oregon where no matter the look they got from the scout team, no matter the look they got from each other, it's just a different beast when you're this type of offense going against the caliber defense against Georgia?
Yeah, that's always a problem when you're playing a top team. But I think you have those issues in high school. In high school, when you have a really good team and you're going to go against another good team, you don't have the players to give you a good look in high school. You got a bunch of sophomores and maybe some freshmen coming up, and they're real slow. And then when the game starts, you're like, wow, this team is fast. In college, it's a little different story. You got some guys who can run out there. You got some guys that can give that look. But again, you're talking about Georgia, so you're a different ball game. We're talking about the best team in the country. We're talking about a team that's national champions. So things change a little bit, and yes, it's hard to get that full speed, in trying to mimic what they're going to do. But at the same time, you got to look at yourself as a player and go, hey, what do I have to do to get better? What do I have to do to help this football team win games? And a lot of it is what Joey talked about earlier. Maybe the effort, give a little bit more effort. It was tough to put, just to really pinpoint what happened in this game, because when you look at it as a whole, there's a lot of things that happened that went wrong and again, the coaches said this. I'm not saying this. The coaches said, hey, it's our fault. We messed up. So now they're taking the blame. Now the players are saying, well, we messed up also. We got to fix this. The only way I look at this whole situation, you put it on Eastern Washington. That's how you forget this. Put it on Eastern Washington.
One quick thing. We keep saying it's Georgia, but remember, you got to go back to Oklahoma and 2 games against Utah. So for the last 5 games, Oregon has looked really, really bad with the lone win being against Oregon State, which was a good Oregon State team last year.
But wait, let me ask you something. Has Oklahoma won a national championship in the last 5 years?
No.
Has Utah won a national? I'm talking about the top team, Aaron. Not top.
We agree.
Not top 5. I'm talking the best.
Right.
Georgia is the best. And when you got 10 dudes going in the draft in the first 2 rounds, there's no comparison. None.
Right, and that makes Oregon look worse because they got blown out by teams that were less than Georgia. So it's not just saying how great Georgia is. It's also saying, well, Oklahoma beat them up pretty badly. So did Utah twice. So there's a trend here is what I'm saying.
Oh,
it's just not about Georgia.
You see this Oregon offense show out against Eastern Washington. When we come back, we'll look around the Pac-12. It looks like the conference as a whole is much improved in the college football playoff. They will expand what it means for Oregon and conference realignment. We'll let you know when we come back on Talkin Ducks. Welcome back to Talkin Ducks. Time now for What's Hot, brought to you by Sam's Northwest Barbecue, the Northwest's largest brick and mortar barbecue store. And let's talk about the Pac-12 opening week in the conference. And let's start with a team that impressed you the most. A lot of teams had some very nice victories here, but Anthony, let's get rolling with you. Which team stood out to you the most?
Now, people don't get upset. I'm not looking at the team. I'm looking at one guy, but they looked okay.
Are you going to say the Beavers?
Son-in-law.
No, Oregon State looked okay, but Jaden Grant, there's free safety for Oregon State, looked outstanding. And you know I have to say that. I mean, he was doing everything that he needed to do as a free safety. He was getting off blocks, making tackles. He was coming up, hitting people at 185 pounds wet.
Shameless.
He got a couple of picks. He got a pick. He was playing just lights out. And if he does that consistently, he will help that team win a lot of football games.
Question before we move on, in the spirit of transparency. Did you spend any vacation time with this young man this summer?
He spent time at my house.
Did you share a meal with this guy?
He's dating my daughter.
Okay, exactly.
That's
What's in the refrigerator? That's the question.
So somebody's a little biased.
Jaden Grant jersey for those NFL games next year. Aaron, Pac-12 team that stood out to you.
I'm going to go USC. I know they played Rice, and Rice isn't necessarily a juggernaut, but I think people wanted to see what Lincoln Riley would do in his first game, especially offensively, and they went nuts. Caleb Williams was 19 for 22, 249. They rushed for 208. They looked pretty strong offensively. Defense is still a question mark. I admit that, but I do believe USC offensively is going to be able to take the Pac-12 just by outscoring everyone by a lot.
One team, actually 2 teams, I'll give a quick nod to. Arizona looked much improved with Jaden DeLora at quarterback. I think the bottom seller of the Pac-12 has certainly gotten a lot better. And then Stanford, don't count out their offense. Tanner McKee and that group of receivers might be the second best quarterback receiver combination in the conference. Joey, anybody impress you?
No.
No? Okay, cool, great. Let's go to college football playoff expansion talk then. The CFP committee and all their secrecy, wherever they meet in the Fortress of Doom out in the swamp or something like that, said they will expand the playoffs to 12, appeasing the hopes of millions of college football fans. The changes will start in 2026. They want to maybe start in 2024. Joey, what does this mean for Oregon? When you combine the performance against Georgia, the fact that there were some rumblings about Oregon talking to the Big Ten, and now it expands to 12, the playoff does, where it takes the 6 highest rated conference champions and the next 6 at large. How does that impact Oregon's future in your opinion?
How does it impact their future? I mean, I don't necessarily, I would say it indirectly impacts their future in that everybody's future at this point is about money, right? So if this new college football playoff setup can add more money to Oregon's pocket staying in the Pac-12 versus going to the Big Ten, then I'm sure that will influence it. I will say as a college football fan and an Oregon alum and Oregon fan, I think that this setup gives more opportunities for teams outside of the SEC, and I'm all for that. Whether that's Big 10, Big 12, Pac-12, the Cinderella team, I'm all for it. But I think we also have to recognize that we have moved into a different atmosphere in college football. I mean, this is minor league. Where's the money? Who's paying me? Kind of, football. This isn't amateur college football anymore. So that has to be taken into consideration when all of this stuff is put together.
Yeah. Quick thought, Anthony and Aaron. Let's start with you, Anthony, about this expansion.
Big Ten doesn't want Oregon anymore. Not after that. I'm just kidding. I agree with Joey. It's all about the dollars, and to me that's a little sad. It's all about big dollars, big money. People getting mad at kids.
Problems.
People getting mad at the kids. Going to certain schools because of the NIL and getting money. But now when schools do it, everybody's, oh yeah, great, that's a great move. We make some money. So it's this whole situation. It's not the normal college football situation anymore. It's just all about who's paying the most money. We'll go over there and join that family.
Aaron, the 6 conference champions, 6 at large, your first round, you imagine top 4 seeds will get a bye. The other 8, you will have playoff games at a team's home site. As a college football fan, how does that make you feel?
This literally has been the system I've been clamoring for decades. It mirrors what the NFL is doing.
They almost went with the Aaron Fentress model.
It mirrors
what they almost called it, and then their PR person said we had to scrap it.
It mirrors what the NFL is doing. It still kind of does, but they just added the 7th playoff team. That's how it should be. Home playoff games really still reward the top 4 teams. Real quick, when I was a little kid, like 8, 9, and I discovered that sports writers decided the national championship, I was disgusted. Like, I was this 8, 9-year-old running with big poofy hair and glasses. Like, how is this a thing? Fast forward,
then
46 years later.
Sports writer, though.
I know. Well, yeah, and I had an AP vote, too. And I knew I wasn't qualified to pick the national champion. So the BCS was better. The 4 playoff teams was better. But now you have full inclusion. No one's going to cry about 13. If you're 13 and you're crying, kick rocks. No one's going to care. So now we're at least going to get everyone involved who deserves to be involved. You'll feel like you had a true national title champion. However, the fact that the Final Four has produced so many blowouts makes me feel like those 9, 10, 11, 12 teams really have no chance, but still, inclusion is better than what they had before.
You never know. Parity, and everybody loves it. All right, stick around when we come back. We'll take a look ahead at Oregon's matchup against Eastern Washington and see what the Ducks need to do to get back on the winning track and off the good foot to get this season started. Plenty more Talkin Ducks when we come back. Welcome back to Talkin Ducks. Let's go ahead and listen in on head coach Dan Lanning as the Ducks get set to host Eastern Washington.
Good. All right. Obviously got back to work today. Started our prep on Eastern Washington. Really got to put to bed the Georgia game. Obviously disappointed with the result in the first game. A lot of stuff that we can improve and work on. But really proud of the fact that our guys attacked that today. And we talk about taking our medicine, going to the doctor, figure out what we can get better. And every one of those guys really walked in that room today, and they weren't finger pointers, they were thumb pointers. What can they improve? Same with our coaching staff. Obviously that result, it starts with me. I said it after the game. We've got good players, and we can play a lot better than we played. That being said, you can't sit around and spend a lot of time looking in the past. You got to start working on the future, and we're about to play a really good opponent in Eastern Washington. Obviously, they've had a lot of success there over the years, and we're excited to get prepped and get to work on them. That being said, we'll open it up.
We'll start right here on the right with Zach.
Coach, how excited do you think your players are to kind of get back on the field and show that they're better than they were this weekend? And how has that played out so far for you?
Yeah, our guys are anxious, extremely anxious to get back to work. That being said, I think every one of our players acknowledges we need to work in between now and in the game. We have, our opponent right now, we have Eastern Washington on the schedule, but our opponent right now is Oregon. And our guys went out there and worked their tails off today, Monday practice. We had a lot of corrections, went and hit those corrections first, got out there and got to work. And I know they're fired up to get back on the field again and prove they're better than they played.
Rob back in the middle.
Just what is your process in the wake of a game? How much are you really reviewing that with your team, and how much is that just with the staff, and then you're just immediately looking forward with your team?
The process doesn't change based on the result. I think the process has to be really consistent. For us, we go back, we watch it with our players, but first we watch it with our staff. We do a quality control write-up of every piece of that trip, including the way travel went, how the hotel was, what our meal, the whole prep, we go and evaluate regardless of results. So it starts there. We got together and really broke that all down as a staff yesterday, all the things that we feel like are the immediate attack pieces. And then we started off this morning really with a recap of the game, followed by a corrections walk. We go back and walk through every single correction from the game, what we know we can make an immediate improvement on, and we carry that over into the next opponent before we start that next practice.
Time now for our legendary moment, brought to you by Abby's Legendary Pizza. And well, it was more so legendary for Eastern Washington, but how about Cooper Kupp when he came to Autzen Stadium and tore up the Ducks? 15 catches, 3 touchdowns, over 200 yards. Little did we all know that we'd be watching a future Hall of Famer operate on that day. So Eastern Washington this time around, guys, does not have a Cooper Kupp on their roster. But for Oregon, this game really centers around what they need to do. And Joey, let's start with you. At the quarterback position and offensively, what do the Ducks need to get back to doing correctly this week at their home opener?
Score. I mean, you ain't going to win points, or you ain't going to win games scoring 3 points. But that happens by eliminating turnovers, right? You move the ball and punt it on your first drive. You move the ball and threw a pick on your second. You move the ball and threw a pick on your third drive. I mean, those are scoring opportunities that simply go away. And against Eastern Washington, you have to come out and put your foot down, or else you're going to see what happened last time, right? Remember what happened when Eastern Washington came in last time? It wasn't a walk in the park. I mean, this was a fairly close ball game, I don't think anybody expects that to happen. The same thing that happened last time, but we haven't seen. Granted, it was against the defending national champs. We haven't seen this Oregon offense go out and score a touchdown yet. So that's what needs to happen.
Aaron, it's the home opener against Eastern Washington. I think they're the 11th ranked team in all of FCS. And so this is a team that'll come into Autzen Stadium and won't be intimidated and won't be scared by the Ducks. What do the Ducks need to do to get things corrected as far as just building that confidence all over again?
Remember, too, Kupp did that with the replacement to Vernon Adams, who was in an Oregon uniform after leaving Eastern Washington. Just a little side note to that day, which was perplexing to me. But anyway, Eastern Washington is a really good FCS program. It always has been, and they do a great job on offense. So it's not going to be a walk in the park necessarily, but Oregon needs to make it a walk in the park to make this sort of a get-right game, right? You know you're not on the level of Georgia, but now go out there and destroy what should be a lesser opponent to sort of let everyone know that you're still formidable when it comes to the Pac-12 level. But again, you can't take this team for granted because they have a young quarterback, actually a fifth-year senior quarterback, first-year starter, and his name is Gunner. If your quarterback's name is Gunner and he throws for 350 and 5 touchdowns in his starting debut, you should be a little leery of that young man. So I would be definitely taking him, seriously, not disrespecting them in any way, but go out there and put 50 on them, hold them to 20, and then you feel a lot better about yourselves going into BYU.
Anthony, how much confidence can Oregon get from this game? I mean, yes, you throw Georgia in the trash. You put that game, that's such an outlier, but how do you bounce back from that against an Eastern Washington to really get yourself back off the can?
Well, I think the confidence comes from playing better. It's not the opponent, Eastern Washington, you should beat them. I mean, we keep going back to these 4- and 5-star players. There's a bunch of those guys on Oregon's team, and there's not a whole lot of those guys on Eastern Washington's team. So you should take care of business. Then if you do that, you will get self-confidence in your playing ability, but you got to be careful with this Eastern Washington team. They got a bunch of guys, they have chips on their shoulders. They didn't get recruited by Oregon. They should have been recruited by Oregon. There's one kid on there I know very well, Mitchell Johnson, defensive end from Westland High School. He should have been recruited by Oregon State, and he wasn't. He has a chip on his shoulder. Now he's coming home to take care of business. And that's the problem that you can find yourself when all of a sudden you should be beating a football team like Eastern Washington, and it's like 17-10 at halftime. You're in a battle. It shouldn't be a battle in this game.
Last year against Stony Brook, it was 17-7.
Yeah, it was very close. And, Eastern Washington is a team that'll go in there against Pac-12 opponents and certainly won't back down. And I think overall, you've got to play a good game that when you go back and watch the film, you can grade yourself well. Obviously, you want to win by a lot. You want to put up a lot of yards, but how did you perform in the things that you can control? All right, don't go anywhere. We'll close up shop when we come back, give you our picks for the matchup between Oregon and Eastern Washington, and what player has the most to prove. Stick around. More Talkin Ducks. Welcome back. Time now to check out our solid pick of the week, brought to you by Milan Stoneworks, bringing you the finest stoneworks in the Northwest. And gentlemen, let's start with the pick here itself. Oregon favored by 21 over Eastern Washington. Aaron, do you think the Ducks cover the spread in this situation?
Would you say it was 31? 21.
21.
21. Yes, I do. I got them 55-23. I think they're going to run all over Eastern Washington. I think Bo Nix will get things going in the passing game. I think the defense will show up against a team that's less talented than they are. So yeah, 55-21, Duckies.
All right, let's go ahead and take a look at what player has to prove the most in this game against Eastern Washington as far as setting themselves up for the rest of the season here. Anthony, let's start with you. Is there a player or position group you really need to see them put together a nice performance?
I want to go with the group. I want to go with the defensive line for Oregon. I mean, they lost the best player of all time at Oregon on defense, Kayvon Thibodeau. But so these other guys.
Better than Haloti?
Well, okay, yeah, there's other ones, but he's up there. Okay. There's some more. Yeah, there's a whole lot. There's
Newman.
There's a whole lot more. Okay, but anyway, one of the top defensive players of all time. The defensive lines, they got to get to the quarterback. They got to stop the run. There's a lot of things they can do as a group. Now, not just one player. I'm talking as a unit, and I want to see them play better as a unit than the last game.
Aaron.
I'm going to go Christian Gonzalez in that secondary. Look, Gonzalez is projected to be a first-round pick. I want to see a number one corner out there handling business. Bennett lit them up for 340 on 19 of 22. Wait, 25 of 31, sorry.
It was an A if it was a term paper.
Yeah, again, it was Georgia, but still, you let someone just completely slice and dice you. And Eastern Washington, again, lower level program. Their passing game is usually elite. I just mentioned their quarterback threw 5 touchdowns last week. So there's going to be a challenge there. So go out there, lock those receivers down, make life difficult for the quarterback, and demonstrate that you can be a quality secondary going into the Pac-12.
Joey.
I think it's Bo. I mean, Bo has got the pressure squarely on him right now because he has to show that he can be the type of quarterback to take Oregon at least into a position to compete for this conference championship, right? The way he played last week was not good enough. And if he can't show that, in the first couple games of the season, I would have to wonder if there's a reason to stick with it. Right? Or do you say, all right, we need to develop the guy who's going to be our long-term starter for the next, 2, 3, 4 years, right? Because Bo's just a stopgap, right? And if he's not stopping anything this year, then, we move. You got to move on to what you got there on the shelves.
Yeah. For me, I look at the coaching staff, not because they did a poor job against Georgia. I think it's like this, guys, we've been in locker rooms before where you get beat down in one game and you see that there's a lack of effort in some areas. I'm really curious to see how the coaches get the players motivated. You just went from playing the defending national champions to now hosting an FCS opponent. Where is your effort level going to be? As you know, championship teams, it doesn't matter who they lace them up against. You're going to see that effort and they're going to grade out an A for effort on every play, no matter who they're playing. Will we see better tackling? Will we see 11 guys flying to the ball? Will we see guys catching the passes and making the plays they need to make no matter who they're playing? That to me tells me this coaching staff has done a good job of refocusing these players as they get set and making sure that they can put Georgia behind them and start a new type of season essentially at this point. And plus, I think for everybody, getting a dub goes a long way towards boosting morale as they get set for the rest of the season. All right, that'll do it for this edition of Talkin Ducks. Oregon taking on Eastern Washington at Autzen Stadium. Make sure you catch us next week. We'll recap this game, but we'll have a lot more to preview as Oregon takes on BYU, a huge non-conference matchup at home. For myself, Joey, Aaron, and Anthony, appreciate you stopping by, and we'll catch you next week.